This love letter is for every single intuitive Black woman leader that desires to feel excited and joyful about shifting out of the spell of negative thinking into the bliss of joyful living. Embracing beauty, because this can be a very beautiful journey, y'all. Embracing the beauty of prioritizing herself in every single area of her life that matters to her the most. I'm talking about in her health, in her relationships, her career, her resources, her business, and her community. It is for the woman that's ready to enjoy the journey of self trust as much as the destination. Hola, mis amores. In today's love letter, we are going to cover the best way to reframe your negative thoughts for joyful living. Because when you change the way that you see the world, you change your reality and you are able to enjoy it with ease and with flow. If at any point you see me turning to the side, it is because I have my notes, y'all, and it's to make sure that I remain focused on the things I want to walk you through today. If you are currently an intuitive Black woman leader and you desire to confidently release negative thinking every single time you're trusting your intuition, get ready. Get ready because in today's love letter, I'm going to share with you everything to ensure you do exactly that. I am going to walk you through the exact same steps that I am utilizing to reframe my reality every single time negative thoughts come knocking on my door. Especially when I'm trusting my inner voice, because that's when I'm stepping into the unknown and those thoughts have a tendency to get louder. You see, I am currently getting ready to take 10 amazing intuitive Black women on this journey to trusting their intuition with joy and with flow. So it's really a great time for me to walk you through this process because I am putting myself through the process right now and I'm getting ready to take this amazing women with me on this journey. This love letter is for every single intuitive Black woman leader that desires to feel excited and joyful about shifting out of the spell of negative thinking into the bliss of joyful living. Embracing beauty, because this can be a very beautiful journey, y'all. Embracing the beauty of prioritizing herself in every single area of her life that matters to her the most. I'm talking about in her health, in her relationships, her career, her resources, her business, and her community. It is for the woman that's ready to enjoy the journey of self trust as much as the destination. I have a question for you. Are you listening? Are you listening to this podcast on Apple Podcast? If you enjoyed today's conversation or any previous conversation, please leave us a 5-star or a 6-star review. Show us some love by highlighting one of your biggest takeaways from any episode of this podcast. Now, if you are listening to us on Apple Podcast, I want to remind you that the Yenory Pouncil podcast is a video podcast experience. So please head to the show notes and grab the link to our YouTube channel so that you can get the full podcast experience. I'm giving you crown today. So check out my crown today and all the visuals I'll be sharing with you in this episode. Make sure that you grab the link in the show notes below for our YouTube channel. Now, if you are catching us on YouTube, listen, how is your spirit today? How are you feeling? Let me know in the comments below how your spirit is doing as we begin this episode because I want to know. And if you're not on YouTube, grab the link and come to YouTube and share with me how is your spirit doing in the comment section below. If you feel aligned, I want to invite you to subscribe to the podcast, to subscribe to the channel, and remember to hit the notification bell, because if you don't hit the notification bell, you will not get to find out as soon as we release an episode. And you are here. And if you're here, it's because you desire to get these episodes as soon as they drop, and I want you to get them. And if you enjoyed today's love letter, can you do me a favor? Could you share with somebody in your life that you know will be touched by it? Can you share with somebody in your life that you know will benefit from listening to it? Because sharing is caring. Now, before we get started, I want to make you an invitation. Let's just jump right into things, because I know there are some of you here that desire to partner with me and co-create magic in your life with me by your side. Would you like to work with me? If you would like to work with me, it is time that you apply for a self-trust audit. I've opened up 6 spots on my calendar for those of you that are listening to this episode on Apple Podcasts or are watching it on the YouTube channel. And it's for those of you who desire to work with me. If you desire to work with me, the best way to move forward in this moment is to book a self-trust audit. Yenory, what is a self-trust audit? I am so glad that you asked. So a self-trust audit, or these self-trust audits, are 45 minutes, no-cost calls that I have with you on a one-on-one basis. It's going to be me and you up in that call together, just like this. And we're going to do a deep dive into what it takes to ensure that you are trusting your intuition with confidence, overflowing with mental calm and with inner peace, and that you're doing this in every single area of your life with joy, because you know I'm all about the joy. I love joy. I love how joy feels, and I desire for you to amplify it in your life. I desire for you to prioritize your self-trust with the joy, because when you enjoy it, you'll do more of it, and you'll show up with power to your life no matter what's happening. And you'll do it with your health, with your family, with your relationships, romantic and platonic. You'll do it in your career, with your resources, in your community. And for those of you that have a business, you'll also do it with your business. So if you are committed to putting your intuition in the leading role in your life, if you are committed to putting your intuition as the guiding light for your life, then this self-trust audits are going to be transformational for you. You are going to walk away from this conversation with a renewed spirit and renewed perspective on the best way to show up in your life with joy. So make sure that you head to the show notes section of this podcast, or in the video. If you're in the video, in the description below the video, to grab the link so that you can apply for one. I have 3 left for the week at the time I'm recording this episode. If we're meeting for the first time, hola, and welcome to the Yenory Pouncil podcast. I am Yenory Pouncil, and in the Yenory Pouncil podcast, every single episode is a love letter. It's a love letter to the future version of myself and to every single intuitive Black woman leader that is committed to living a life overflowing with joy. If you're new to the family, my zone of brilliance is my ability to grow by trusting my intuition no matter what, by trusting my intuition in every single area of my life and doing it with joy, being the best version of myself. And this is why I've dedicated the last 14 years of my life to ensuring intuitive Black women leaders put their intuition first, because I've seen what's on the other side. And I desire for them to put their intuition first, all while being the best version of themselves, all while they are building their legacies, while they are shifting their lineages, and as the most authentic version of who they are. This is why I am the go-to spiritual guide for intuitive Black women leaders that are prioritizing their self-trust with joy. because I am about this life, y'all. I live it, I teach it, I embrace it, and I enjoy it every single day. Which brings me to today. Today, we're focused on the best way to reframe your negative thoughts for joyful living. Because when you change the way that you see the world, you change your reality and you're able to enjoy it with ease and with flow, which is what I want for you. I want this for you because most intuitive Black women leaders, they have learned that anytime negative thinking shows up for them, anytime the negative thoughts come through, they have to step into the role of being a referee. You know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about going back and forth in the mind, playing good cop and bad cop with their own thoughts. Now, this pattern is specifically louder, especially louder when you're trusting your intuition. Because when you're trusting your intuition, your intuitive guidance tends to go against the grain. It tends to send you into the unknown territory. It tends to pull you out of your comfort zone. It challenges you to step outside of what feels safe to you in the moment. And this triggers quite a bit of negative thoughts. And those thoughts materialize into the form of self-doubt. So, what happens when self-doubt shows up? You start to think that you're doing something wrong. And those negative thoughts begin an avalanche of negative thoughts that have the power to keep you stuck in situations, stuck in your head, dancing to the beat of overthinking and analysis paralysis. And they get louder when you are trusting your intuition because, like I just shared with you, your intuition is going to take you outside of your comfort zone. And that's when those negative thoughts are going to get louder and louder for you. And this is why you get annoyed and frustrated when you don't get things your way. It is because the thoughts that show up for you trigger thoughts that lead to negative thinking. And those thoughts can be very addictive when they show up. Negative thoughts have a very addictive nature. That's why people tend to get stuck in their heads so much, especially when you don't achieve your goals in the exact timeline you set for yourself. Think about a situation that you set for yourself, like in where you didn't achieve the goals in a timeline that you wanted to. What were the thoughts that were coming up for you? Were they positive thoughts or were they negative thoughts? And did these thoughts get louder the longer you went without accomplishing your goal? These thoughts show up when your goals don't materialize in the exact way that you desire. It doesn't mean that you didn't accomplish your goal. It means that it didn't materialize in the exact way that you thought it had to be accomplished. What thoughts come up for you in those situations? Let me know in the comments below. These thoughts also show up for you when you feel forced. My hands are in quotation marks for those of you that are listening on Apple Podcast. When you feel forced to slow down or to redirect because of the uncontrollable nature of life. What are the thoughts that come up for you? Are they thoughts of grace? Are they thoughts of yes, this is okay? Or are they negative thoughts? Are they thoughts that question you, that question your sense of self-worth? For most of us, when we're showing up to our intuition and these thoughts show up, they aren't positive thoughts. They tend to be negative thoughts. And we have this tendency to give in to these thoughts. It's not that we want to give in to these thoughts, it's what we have learned. I want you to know what happens when you do that, though. What happens when you give in to these thoughts? You become resentful. You become resentful towards yourself. You become resentful towards others. You become resentful towards God, source energy, whatever you want to call it. And you become resentful towards the unfolding of your life. instead of choosing to interrupt this pattern of negative thinking, and reframing how you see your world, your thoughts become a source of anger, a source of frustration, and a source of suffering. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Is this touching you? Is this resonating with you? Because you start to wonder, when you are in those situations, you begin to wonder, why is it so hard for me to get things right the first time? Have you asked yourself that question when you're going through a situation in your life that's not unfolding in the way that you desire? Or have you asked yourself, why can't you get things when you want them? Why are you being forced, once again, quotation marks, to wait? What are you doing wrong? What is the problem, and what can you do to fix it as quickly as possible? If these questions have been percolating in your mind, let me know in the comments below this video. Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever asked those questions of yourself? Take a moment, pause, reflect. Have you ever asked yourself these questions? While you take a second to do that, I'm going to sip some water. And drop it in the comments below this video. You may be wondering, Yenory, how do you know this? Here's how I know. You want to know how I know? Here's how I know. In 2018, I quit my job. Both my husband and I quit our jobs in 2018. We were living in DC, and you may have heard me talking about this in previous episodes. In 2018, I quit my job, my 9 to 5, or the 9 to 5 I had, because it wasn't mine, the 9 to 5 I had, as a director of communications and membership relations. And I packed with my husband. We packed our 1 bedroom apartment from DC, and we moved to Florida. And we moved to Florida to figure out what we wanted to be when we grew up, to launch our business, to launch this business, and to live a life of joy, and to replace our income, which was a combined income of 6 figures between the two of us, in 2 years. The intention was to do this in 2 years or less. I actually think my husband said the intention was 6 months. Do you think that happened? No, it did not happen. When we got to Florida, here's what happened. When we got to Florida and we began to step into the role of being business owners, when I began to step into the role of being a business owner, I began to uncover quite a bit of things about myself. First, when the clients did not come running to me the moment I announced I was open for business, guess what? I thought I wasn't enough. I thought I wasn't good enough. I thought that the reason why the clients weren't running to pay me and to work with me, it was because I wasn't good enough. I wasn't considering all the other reasons why perhaps the clients weren't coming to me. In my mind, I started to think, oh, it's me. I'm not good enough. And it didn't stop there. When I started to hear no on sales calls, because part of my process was to get on sales calls and to offer my services to people that I felt were a good fit. When I started to hear no, I started to think that I was doing something wrong. I started to think the reason why people were telling me no is because I couldn't, quote unquote, get them to say yes because I was doing something wrong. You see what's happening here? You see this pattern? And of course, it didn't stop there. When I began to increase my prices, when clients started coming in and I started working with clients and I started getting yes on sales calls, and I started to work with people and I started to build my confidence as a mentor, and I began to raise my prices, and people said they couldn't afford it, I thought I had made a mistake. I thought that there was something wrong with me for increasing my rates, and that's why people weren't saying yes to me. And this is how I know what you have been through, what you're going through, and perhaps what you may be experiencing in your future is because I've been there. I know what it's like to step into the unknown, to listen to your intuition, because that move for me was me listening to my intuition. My intuition was like, yo, you got to move. It's time to go. And when I stepped into the unknown, when I stepped out of my comfort zone and I wasn't getting the results I wanted in the timeline that I wanted, in the way that I wanted, I began to think. The negative thoughts started coming in. And that led me to have this beliefs about myself that weren't true because that's what I was conditioned to. It's what I had learned. Here's what I have learned from that. Here's a good time to have your journal. If you don't have your journal handy, I'm going to give you a moment to grab your journal because you're going to be writing some things down. Okay, so grab your journal so that we can write some things down. Whether you know it or not, this is whether you know it or not, because lack of knowledge does not mean lack of existence. Let's write that down. Lack of knowledge doesn't mean lack of existence. Just because you don't know something doesn't mean it's not happening, and it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Whether you know it or not, most intuitive Black women, they are like me. Y'all are just like me. You've learned that anytime you have negative thoughts, your number one job is to be a referee. Is to be a referee and spend endless hours in your head going back and forth between your thoughts. That's what I was doing. I was going back and forth in my thoughts, and I was spending pretty much 80% of my day, 90% of my day in my head, overthinking, analyzing, looking for answers. And this is where the frustration comes from. That frustration you feel when things don't go your way, that frustration you feel when negative thoughts show up, this is where it comes from. And it's also where the anger comes from. Because in this approach, your negative thoughts are in charge. In this approach, your negative thoughts are running the show. And once you enter the loop of negative thinking, it's very hard to get out. And you've been there. You've experienced this before. You experienced how challenging it is to get out of that loop of negative thinking once you get in it. Because the loop keeps feeding itself. It snowballs into self-judgment, and then you start to treat yourself harshly, and then you start to avoid meeting yourself where you are. You don't talk to yourself with kindness and compassion because most of us have learned to use negative self-talk as a form of motivation. So when those negative thoughts come in, they feed off of that, and you go into a cycle, this never-ending cycle of thinking negative thoughts about you and the way you're showing up in every area of your life. And you start to focus on the ways that things aren't showing up the way you want them with your health, with your career, with your relationships, with your marriage, if you're married, as a mother, if you have kids, as a business owner, in your community. You focus on the things that are not going the way you want them to, in the things that are not going right for you. And here's the truth: reframing your thoughts is about you taking responsibility for you. Write this down. Reframing your thoughts is about you loving you. Reframing your thoughts is about freeing yourself. Freeing yourself from the hamster wheel of overthinking and of analysis paralysis. And you know what it's like to be in that space because you've been there. Reframing your thoughts is about meeting yourself where you are with joy. Reframing your thoughts is about changing the way that you see the world so that you can show up as the most authentic version of yourself. It's about you giving yourself permission so that you can express yourself, so that you can accept yourself, so that you can trust yourself, so that you can be yourself. And the best part of this is that you can enjoy the entire experience, no matter what the thoughts say. No matter what thoughts are popping up in your mind and what they are saying, you can enjoy this. And it took me 6 years 6 years to learn that reframing my negative thoughts was designed to help me live joyfully. It took me 6 years to learn that, and it doesn't have to take you 6 years. Here's why I'm giving you the tea right now so that it doesn't take you 6 years, so that you can learn it right now and you can leverage it. Here's how I've mastered reframing my thoughts, especially when it comes to trusting my intuition. Because I told you, that's when they get the loudest. Because you're stepping out of your comfort zone, you're stepping into unknown territory, and it requires you to release the old version of you and to embrace the version of you you're desiring to be. The key to reframing your negative thinking and trusting yourself with confidence is very simple. Number one, get out of your head. Write this down. Get out of your head. You got to get out of your head. You got to pay attention to how you're acting versus how you think you're acting. And you hear me say that a lot in these videos because that's where everything begins. You got to look at where you are. You got to ask yourself, how do you show up when negative thoughts come knocking on your door? How do you show up? Take a moment right now and write down a word or a phrase on your journal that reflects how you show up. And if you feel generous, share with us in the comments below this video. Are you willing to put down the referee outfit? Are you willing to take that off? Are you willing to stop being the referee of the thoughts in your mind? Are you willing to treat yourself with compassion when you find yourself in that loop, in that cycle? Are you willing to do that? Are you tapping into your courage to look at your actions with compassion and ownership so that you can make those changes? Are you willing to witness yourself in the present moment? Are you willing to witness yourself in the present moment when it feels uncomfortable, when it feels hard? Write this down. The only person that can keep you in your head, it's you. The only person that can keep you in your head is you. It starts with you. You're going to hear me say that a lot in this podcast because that is the truth. It starts with you. Truth carries a frequency. And when you hear it, you feel it. And I know that you know that it starts with you. No one knows you the way that you know you. Let me take this off. No one knows you the way that you know you. Not your mother, not your father, not your grandmother, not your spouse, not your children, not your best friend from 40, 30 years. They don't know you like you know you. This is why it has to start with you because you get to decide what you're going to do when those negative thoughts show up. You get to decide how you will show up through those thoughts. It is your decision. And to be frank with you, it's the only thing you can control. You can't control when they're going to show up, how they're going to show up, what they're going to be. You can control how you will show up to them. That's what it takes to be in alignment. That's what it takes to live in alignment. That's what it takes to live with joy. Number 2, write this down, be in the present moment. The second thing that is required for you to reframe your negative thoughts when trusting your intuition with confidence is to be in the present moment. What you experience as negative thinking, at its core, it's you avoiding where you are right now. It is actually a sign. It is a sign that you're being invited to put your heart first instead of your mind, to love yourself unconditionally, and to detach your sense of self worth from your achievements. And we're really good at that. I am really good at attaching my sense of self worth to accomplishing something, to achieving something. And the women that I attract, they're like me in that way, that they are accustomed to attaching the sense of self worth to what they are achieving. And when we find ourselves experiencing negative thoughts, we're being asked to look at that, to make that separation. It is a sign that you're being invited, that you're being asked to be in the now and to learn about yourself, to learn about who you are, about the way that you show up, about how that feels to you. Because when you learn about yourself, this is something really powerful that I've discovered as I continue going beneath the surface. The deeper I get into trusting myself, I continue to learn and be reminded that the negative thoughts I experience, they are portals. They are portals into my inner peace and my mental calm. And I can only allow myself to see it like that when I stop avoiding them, when I'm in the present moment. And when you shift from avoiding those negative thoughts to being curious about them, you tap into the lessons in that moment, the very lessons that that moment is there to teach you. That moment that you're dreading is actually one of your most powerful teachers. And when you're willing to meet yourself where you are, you can actually learn those lessons that help you enjoy your life at a deeper level. It's you. hmm It's you choosing to see that your value goes beyond anything you've achieved. You're so much more than your achievements. There is so much more magic to you than the things you check off your to do list. Your beauty, your depth, your gift to all of us as a light in the world goes beyond anything that we have experienced from you so far. You're so much more than that. And I wonder, and I want you to reflect on this, are you embracing being in the now? Are you at peace with being in stillness? Are you available to see yourself in the present moment? I want you to write something down. Write this down. The only person that can keep you in the present moment, it's you. The only person that can keep in the present moment, it is you. This is a daily decision. And to make this decision, it's going to feel uncomfortable at times, especially in the beginning. Making this daily decision will feel uncomfortable. Because again, your intuitive guidance is going to take you outside of the place of safety. It's going to take you into unknown territory. And that feels uncomfortable. You and I both know you'll do it because you're about this life and you're going to step outside into the unknown. You step out of your comfort zone all the time. It is going to feel uncomfortable though. And this is why you have to have a reliable, proven system, to be able to give yourself grace when you don't feel like it, to be able to reframe those thoughts when you don't want to. Because sometimes you're going to get caught up in that loop. And in those moments, you're not going to want to get out. You may not even know how to get out. So you got to have a proven, reliable system to know what tweaks to make when you find yourself in those situations, when you find yourself off track with who you desire to do, who you desire to be, in the way you desire to show up. And I know that reframing your reality, especially those negative thoughts as an intuitive Black woman, can be extremely challenging. I do. And if you're currently challenged with changing how you see the world, especially when you're putting your intuition first in every single area of your life, I want you to know that this is normal and that you are not alone. The most important thing for you is to know that reframing your negative thoughts is only a small part. It is a small part of an effective self-trust strategy. I want to show you something. What you are looking at here is a proven framework, and it's the proven framework that I've used and we use to help intuitive Black women leaders embody their self-trust in 90 days, feeling excited to live the life that they envision for themselves, focus in on nurturing thoughts that leave them feeling confident and empowered. It is actually an intimate journey into the most loving, compassionate, and confident version of yourself. And if you're an intuitive Black woman leader, if you are the go to with your family, especially if you are the oldest daughter, if you're the go to in your career or in your community, and you desire to get crystal clear on the next most aligned step for you right now, so that you can put your intuition in charge and to do it in every single area of your life with ease and with joy, you want to apply for a self trust audit below. Because in this system, you can see that reframing our thoughts is one step, is actually the sixth step of the system. And when you are clear on this, you can pay attention to where are you in this journey and address whatever may be standing in the way of your ability to show up powerfully with your intuition when it guides you. And this self-trust audit is where we unearth that information. The self-trust audits are 45-minute no-cost calls where we're going to dive deep into what it takes to ensure that you are trusting your intuition with mental calm and inner peace in every single area of your life, and you're doing it with joy. Because it is about prioritizing your self-trust and prioritizing your self-trust with joy. And in this call, we are going to focus on being clear on what is your path to do this with your health, with your family, your relationships, romantic and platonic, your resources, your money, your finances, your career, your business, and your community. And you may be wondering, Yenory, why are you offering free self-trust audits? And the answer is actually really simple. Because a percentage of the intuitive Black women leaders that we speak with, they end up partnering with us so that we can help them achieve these results. And this isn't about putting pressure on you. This is a no pressure call. This is about me helping you. Whether you choose to work with me or not, I'm going to help you get crystal clear on the exact most aligned step for you right now, so that you can put your intuition on the number one spot of your life and do it with ease and with joy. So again, if you are serious about this, if you're serious about showing up to your self-trust with confidence, instead of judging yourself for being human, instead of avoiding your inner guidance when it feels uncomfortable, apply for a self-trust audit right now. The link is below this video for those of you that are catching it on YouTube, or in the show notes for those of you that are listening on Apple Podcast. Remember that having a reliable proven system to reframe your negative thoughts when they come up, and it feels uncomfortable, is a non-negotiable. Having a reliable proven system to know what tweaks to make when you get off track, when you are experiencing these negative thoughts, is a non-negotiable. And it starts with you. It starts with where you are. It starts with looking at what it takes for you to shift. And it starts with doing it with someone that understands this journey beyond the surface. Let's do a quick recap. Let's recap. So today we covered the best way to reframe your negative thoughts for joyful living. Because when you change the way you look at the world, you change your reality, and you are able to enjoy it with ease and with flow. Remember that whether you know it or not, most intuitive Black women, they are like me. You've learned that anytime negative thoughts show up, your job is to be a referee and to spend endless hours in your head going back and forth. It's like you're watching a tennis match, going back and forth between your thoughts, playing good cop and playing bad cop. And that's where the frustration comes from. This is where the anger comes from every time those thoughts show up for you, because in this approach, your thoughts are in charge. The negative thoughts are the ones running the show. And once you get into that loop of negative thinking, it's very challenging to get out of it, because the loop keeps feeding itself. When you have a negative thought, another negative thought shows up. When you have that thought, another negative thought shows up. And then you go from looking at negative thoughts in one area of your life to looking at negative thoughts in another area of your life. And next thing you know, it's been hours upon hours of overthinking, of analysis paralysis, of being a referee in your head, and you're not enjoying your reality. And then it snowballs. It snowballs into judgment. It snowballs into treating yourself harshly, because most of us have learned to use negative self-talk as a form of motivation. And that leads into avoiding meeting yourself where you are with kindness and with compassion, which does not feel good. Let's just be honest. And the truth is that reframing your negative thoughts is about taking responsibility for you. Reframing your negative thoughts is about loving you. Reframing your negative thoughts is about freeing yourself from the hamster wheel of overthinking and of analysis paralysis. Reframing your negative thoughts is about meeting yourself where you are with joy, with compassion. Reframing your negative thoughts is about shifting the way you see the world so that you can show up as the most authentic version of yourself when your intuition is guiding you and when it feels uncomfortable. Because that's where the magic is. That's where you express yourself. That's when you accept yourself. That's when you trust yourself. And then you freely, confident, you freely and you confidently are yourself. And the best part of this is that you can enjoy the entire experience, no matter what the thoughts in your mind may say. And it took me 6 years to learn that reframing my negative thoughts was designed to help me live joyfully. It took me 6 years to learn that, and it doesn't have to take 6 years for you to learn it. And this is why having a reliable system in place to reframe your negative thoughts, especially when it feels uncomfortable, is a non-negotiable. And if you desire to leverage our system, what we call the self-trust system, make sure that you apply for one of the self-trust audits. We have 3 available at the time of the recording of this video. for those of you that are listening to this episode on Apple Podcasts or are watching it on the YouTube channel. Now, before I go, question for you. Are you listening to this episode on Apple Podcast? If so, if you enjoyed today's conversation, if you made it this far, please show us some love by leaving us a 5-star or a 6-star review on Apple Podcasts and share one highlight that you took away from this episode. Share with us a takeaway, the biggest takeaway that you got from this conversation. Next, if you don't remember, for some reason, the Yenory Pouncil podcast, it is a video podcast experience. So head to the show notes and grab the link to our YouTube channel so that you can get the full experience, so that you can get the visual of the self-trust system, which is our signature framework to help intuitive Black women live a life that they love, that they enjoy, especially when they're trusting their intuition, as they are trusting their intuition. And if you are catching us on YouTube, let me know what you enjoyed from today's episode in the comments below. And be sure to subscribe to the channel. If it feels aligned, checking with your intuition, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so that you are one of the first to know as soon as we drop an episode. Because that's how it works on YouTube. If you don't hit that notification bell, you're not going to know when the next love letter hits. And I want to make sure that you get them. And if you enjoyed this conversation, can you do me a favor? Can you please share it with somebody that you love, with another Black woman that's focusing on healing, focusing on enjoying their life? Because sharing is caring, y'all. Now, in the next episode, I am going to kick off a 4-part mini series on healing from burnout. Now, this is going to be another piece to the puzzle of feeling empowered and encouraged to show up as the most authentic version of yourself, unconditionally loving yourself every single time your intuition is guiding you. In doing this, overflowing with mental calm, inner peace, and joy. Now, these episodes are going to be shorter episodes because I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break. I've been going nonstop on the podcast for about 12 weeks now, and I decided to refresh. I pour a lot of me into these episodes energetically, and it's important that I'm not experiencing burnout. And I decided to hold space for me to go and refresh my energy. So those episodes will be shorter episodes. I'm thinking closer to 15-minute episodes. They still be powerful episodes, and they'll be packed with beautiful insights to help you live a life you enjoy as you trust yourself. So you still gonna get the tea. So we're gonna kick those off for you starting next episode. And that next episode is gonna air on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And make sure that you check us out because it's gonna be a whole vibe to go through this journey together. I want to thank you for joining me on today's episode of the Yenory Pouncil podcast, where each one of these episodes, it's really a love letter to the future version of myself and to every single intuitive Black woman leader that is committed to living a life that they enjoy. If you're new to the family, thank you for making it this far. My zone of brilliance is my ability to grow by trusting my intuition no matter what, in every single area of my life, in my career, with my health, my relationship, my finances, my family, my community. And this is why I am the go-to spiritual guide for other intuitive Black women leaders that are grounded and desiring to prioritize their self-trust with joy, because they know the vibes. And I am here to ensure that you see things clearly. Thank you for joining me today, mis amores, and I will see you in the next episode. Hasta luego.